Okay, this is for H1 Web 1, right? You're looking for an online coaching curriculum for high school, and you're considering the 3-4-3 or 4-3-4, something like that. I just want to take a crack at this before you dove into that online program because, right, this is your question caught my eye because, right, this is a routine that Doug Nevins, right? He's a former Gatorade Coach of the Year. He still coaches, I believe, at West Orange High School, and he coached me for 3 years. And the reason why I loved his practices because they were the same thing every time with some variations. So this kind of pattern, right? I see a lot of coaches asking questions on here, and they kind of they're looking to mix up their practice sessions. But I found that you can have a fairly straightforward and simple practice routine because there's still nuances and there's still diversity even though you're doing the same thing every time, right? So Doug would run his practices the same way. They'd go warm up, possession, finishing on goal, crossing and finishing, and then playing to big goals. But there's some key nuances in how he would run it, right? So warm up is fairly straightforward, but in terms of possession, there'd be 3 different types of possession games. One was 2-team possession, keeping the ball maybe 5 times scores a point, and then first team to get 5 points win, something like that. The second possession game, sometimes we'd play if the numbers were right, was monkey in the middle style, right? So if you had enough pennies, or maybe if it was summer, maybe shirt skins and then one team's pennies. I don't know if this is possible for you. And then another possession game, which was super fun. He would lay cones down, right? So he would make gates on the field with thin cones, and you had to pass the ball through the gates to score a point to your team. And this was awesome because, right, this was a great drill because the team that would try and score, they would try and go get a lot of points, right, going back between the gates like over and over. So then the defending team would try and come and defend against the gate. So the attacking team had to recognize the pressure of the defending team trying to block the gate, and then locate an open gate, and then try and score on that gate. So what I realized after the fact is this would really help. This helped us switch the point of attack, and it would translate into us switching the ball from different sides of the field in games. So in terms of finishing on goal, so he would say there would be two. He would start off with what he would call Slotsville. Slotsville would be low, hard-driven balls. Right, the line would start about halfway at midfield, and then players would run fast. All the players would line up right here, and then they would do a low, hard-driven ball, right, Slotsville, on the side netting left or side netting right. And psychologically, this was kind of hard on goalkeepers, so he would have the goalkeepers pop in and out. So it wouldn't even matter if goalkeepers were in the net or not. Players would just go run free for all. Whenever they had the opportunity, whenever the lane was clear, then they would go, right? He wouldn't use a whistle. But then for volleys, he would call that Volleysville. So he would stand facing the goal, and players would line up behind him and hand him the ball, and then the player would stand and face him, right? So then he would throw the ball over their head, and then they'd spin around, and right, we'd strike it one time on goal volley. So we call that Volleysville, right? So you've got 5 to 10 minutes of Slotsville, and then maybe 5 minutes worth of Volleysville, he'd call it. For crossing and finishing, super simple. Balls at this line, right? Players at this line, players at this line. This is left winger, this is right winger, and they'd make alternating lines. The finishing lines were here, and then all the lines were rotating. So player would take a few touches, slightly diagonal run, cross the ball in. This line would make a cross. This line would make a cross and just finish on goal. And similar to finish on goal in crossing and finishing, he wouldn't use a whistle, right? So it was just a free for all. Whenever it was ready, the next line would go. And ideally, you want to do this on, I don't know how much access you have to, whatever side, but ideally, you're gonna do the finishing drill, and you're gonna do volleys on goal at a side that has a backstop, right? Because then it saves players from you don't want players spending more time chasing the ball. You want them to do finishing on goal and crossing and finishing, right? So ideally you choose a side where there's a backstop. This is something kind of nuanced, but it actually adds up over time. If you think you only have, right, you think about it, you only have few practices with limited amount of time. So you really got to kind of make it worth your while. And you might need to stop 2 or 3 times to collect the balls from either behind the back of the goal, to reset the lines, or to grab the balls from the back of the nets, right? And then so playing to big goals, right? So we wouldn't take breaks between any of these things. We just go right into it, back to back, and we just say, I mean, players would just go get water if they want at any point in practice. Okay, so playing the big goals, this is important. He would split the team up into 3 different teams, right? 3 different teams, and the reason why you want 3 different teams is because, well, first we'd bring a big goal about halfway, right? So the goal, right? Ideally, you can bring a goal that's your goal is portable, and you can move it halfway because you want a tight field, right? The field would be super tight, and then so we would have 3 teams. One team would be on the outside, so we would have players here, 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 and here. And this was important because the players on the outside, the team sitting out, those were bumper players, right? Neutral players, and they all had 1 touch. And this kept that third team, right, the team sitting out, very engaged because they wanted to get back on the field, right? This is a super important part of playing to big goals, because if you only have 2 teams and a team scores or a team gets scored on, there's nothing lost and there's nothing gained. But by adding a third team, right, it creates this king of the hill style competition, and it kind of raised the intensity level, and it really finished on practice on a high note, right? I played for some coaches where they used playing at the end of practice as a game, and I just never could get behind that because you kind of want to set it up, right? You want your intensity of practice to be higher than every single team you face, because if your inter-team or your intra-team competition is higher than your competition, then you're going to have a great, in theory, you should have great success in your season. So right, there'd be, and the field is tight enough where you're getting a goal scored on, someone scoring a goal every, no more than 2 to 4 minutes, because in such a tight area, if someone makes a good move, or there's a good spell of play, or a defender doesn't cover, there's goal scoring opportunities kind of everywhere you look, right? Someone gets their head up and gets a shot off, right? So this game is super powerful because it's rapidly, there's constant shifting between attack and defense, so players really have to be adaptable, and you just have the whole dynamic of being able to play the bumper players, neutral players with 1 touch, right? If they have 1 touch, they're super engaged because they want to get back on the field. So since they want to get back on the field, they're going to really help the players. They're going to help the players on the field who are playing them the ball, right? So right, that's another reason why it's important that's another benefit of having 3 different teams. You keep the teams sitting off, engaged, and then you just finish with a cool down, right? So we'd run that every single practice, and by the time we were, this is, I'm talking 2008, we were ranked 1 in the nation. U18 boys, PDA Cruyff, coached by Doug Nevins, was ranked 1 in the nation, and we lost in regionals to FC Delco that year. So hopefully this helps, and good luck with your season. I know you had some former, you played professional, and you played D1 ball. So hopefully this can help elevate your season, and maybe some of these ideas resonate with you. All right, thank you.